Good evening, Loyalites, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fourth session of the Loyola Career Guidance Program. My name is Wing Commander Nalini Ranjan Kanti. I am from the 1969 batch of Loyola. I belong to Trivandrum, live in the NCR, and I'm currently joining you from Mumbai. I retired from the Air Force in 1999 after 24 years of service. Worked in the corporate sector for 10 to 12 years. Finally retired about 8 years back. And then spent my time catching up on all that I wanted to do, particularly on things that I did not have time to do when I was in service. If I may use the term, today I am actually a full-time LOBA activist. Today we have lined up a very interesting panel for you that represents careers that take you to an exciting, adventurous, and disciplined career in the Indian Armed Forces, an equally exciting career in the DRDO, the Defense Research and Development Organization. One doesn't hear too much about the DRDO. There are scientists who work at a low profile, but who do tremendous amount of work that is internationally recognized. DRDO does practically all the research and development for the Defense Department. And the last but not the least, a very exciting career in the Indian Police Service. We don't, again, see much about the good part of what the IPS does. But you would agree with me that it is the police that tackles crime, that investigates all crimes that come up, tackle terrorism in our country, and also make daily life peaceful for the citizens of this country. Before we go on to the panel, let me show you a slide that gives you some details about the housekeeping rules. A quick glance at the slide. The first is please send your questions for the panelists via the Q&A box. Secondly, your questions must be short and to the point. Number 3, only questions related to career guidance will be discussed today. Number 4, relevant unanswered questions, not anonymous, will be replied to via email after this session. And last but not the least, please note the last point on the slide. Slides used through today's session are available on the LOBA website, www.lobaglobal.com. Now, why I'm emphasizing on this is that we have a lot of slides. I mean, today's careers are such that many people don't have enough information about it. We have a lot of slides that we are showing. Please do not spend too much of time studying these slides. Those of you who want to go back to the slides and get information, please do log on to our LOBA website and click on the link there, and you will see all this information there again. Now, for the first time in this program, I am elated to introduce to you a student co-moderator, Bhavik B.R. Nair. Bhavik has been a student of Loyola right from the word go. He's an extremely focused and hardworking student. When I did ask for a feedback from his teacher, when I was selecting a co-moderator, I was told that you couldn't have a better choice than Bhavik. Bhavik's career, the ambition, in fact, is to join the armed forces. So I think we got a good co-moderator in Bhavik. That said, he's an ardent football fan, and he says his club is Real Madrid. He's an optimist, never says no. Whenever I asked him whether he had any problems in handling this panel, he says, no problem, just leave it to me and I'll do the needful. Bhavik, welcome to this program.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
And nice to have you here. It's nice to have a school student for the first time. Great going. In another first today, I must also welcome students from three other Jesuit institutions in Kerala. The first are students from AKJM School at Kanjirapalli, St. Michael's School at Kannur, and St. Joseph's School at Kozhikode. They are participating in the session for the first time. A hearty welcome to all our friends from these three schools. I now present before you our three panelists. Air Marshal Balakrishnan Suresh. Suresh is from the 1975 batch of Loyola. He left school when he was in class 8 to pursue his dream career, a career in the armed forces. He left Loyola, joined the Rashtriya Indian Military College, RIMC, where he finished his schooling, then went to the NDA, and from the NDA was commissioned in the Indian Air Force as a fighter pilot. Suresh retired in 2020 when he was the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of the Indian Air Force's Strike Command, the Western Air Command. One can't hope for a better career than retire as the Chief of the Indian Air Force's Western Air Command. Suresh is very well known to most of you. Before he went to the Western Air Command, he was also the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of the Southern Air Command in Trivandrum. And he played a stellar role in handling relief and rescue operations during the devastating floods that hit Kerala in 2018. Welcome, Suresh.
Thank you, sir, for having me on the panel, and my kudos to the organizers. It's a wonderful concept. Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure having you with us. Atul Dinkar Rane. Atul is an outstanding scientist from the DRDO. He's been with them for 34 years. His profile, one actually cannot memorize his profile. So please pardon me if I read his profile from this cheat sheet that I have here. He's a typical scientist, very low profile man, but outstanding as far as his work goes. He's an expert in systems modeling, missiles, avionics, and integration of systems. He was also involved in the BrahMos program and was the Counselor Defense Technology at the Indian Embassy in Moscow. He spearheaded the international cooperation of DRDO R&D and is currently Director, Joint Cypher Bureau of the DRDO. He's a recipient of the DRDO Award for Professional Excellence. He's from the 1980 batch of Loyola. And the youngest of our three panelists is Anup Kuruvula John, a 2004 batch IPS officer from the 1997 batch of Loyola. Anup is currently the Deputy Inspector General of Police of the Anti-Terrorist Squad of the Kerala Police, a very nascent organization. He has been given the task of setting up the Anti-Terrorist Squad, a very exciting job, I presume. He is a graduate of the National Law University, Bangalore, a lawyer by profession, who subsequently, after joining the service, also did a law degree from the Harvard University. Welcome, Anu.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor.
Honor to have you.
Okay.
The youngest of our panelists. With that said, before we get on with the panelists, we have a poll. In fact, two polls. Please watch your screen. The poll will come up. Please choose your option. Click on your option and then click submit. It has to be quick. We have just 15 seconds before we go on to the next question. Yeah, so you're through with the first question. The results are there on the screen for you to see. I'm not going to run through the results. May we have the second question, please? That's more to see how interested you are in the careers being discussed today. Please click on your choice and also click submit. Yeah, we have just 5 seconds left before you submit your choice. Thank you. Wow. A fairly decent person, which covers very interested. Thank you very much. Now let's get on with our discussions. Before we go on to the panelists, let me just, share a thought with you and tell you that the intention behind this panel discussion is not to sell a career to you. It's more to enlighten you on the various career options that are available for a student. See, many people aren't really aware of the many career options that are available. The defense, possibly DRDO, and the police possibly take a back seat, particularly in Kerala when people talk about career options. So in addition to these, I mean, our entire range of discussions over the last few months have covered such a wide range of careers. We still have 3 or 4 programs left. These give you an insight into the multiple choices that you have when it comes to selecting a career. Okay, that said, now let's get on with our first panelist. Suresh, you are not from an armed forces background. In fact, your father was a civil servant, yet you opted for the adventurous and very hard life of an armed forces career. That said, you in class 2 joined RIMC, and subsequently you graduated from the NDA and had an absolutely illustrious career in the Air Force. Can you tell us something about your journey from school to the Air Force?
So thank you for the question. It's not going to be a run-of-the-mill usual answer that you can expect. Most people will say, I saw aircraft flying and I wanted to join the Air Force. But it was not so, and I'm sure most of the attendees, even the parents, will actually kind of identify with what I went through. I really, you're right, my father was a civil servant, probably would have gone through Loyola, done engineering, then probably IAS and carried on, but didn't happen so. Why? Because my father thought, though I was quite okay in academics, my father thought I was far too shy. This guy is not going to leave the shores of Kerala. He is always hiding behind his mother's sari, very shy at interacting with people. And incidentally, I also took my second language is Malayalam in Loyola. In fact, I spent a very short time in Loyola, 2 years. And the instructor I remember most, the teacher, is my Malayalam teacher, Mr. Nair. And in fact, it's with thanks to him that I still speak wonderful Malayalam. And I even can recite poetry from Pujan Nambiar. But it so happened that I was made to take second language as Malayalam. One fine day, he saw an advertisement for RIMC. He said, go appear for a competitive exam. Incidentally, RIMC, the Rashtriya Indian Military College, selects 1 student per state in a batch. In every 6 months, it's 1 student per state. In 72, that amounted to 23 to 25 students per state, all over India. So it was tough, but thanks to Loyola and the academic rigor there, I was halfway through 8 by the age of 12. So I did extremely well in the exams. I got a merit scholarship, and that's how I landed up in RIMC. But not knowing a bit of Hindi, I went from the sunny shores of Kerala to this cold climb of Dehradun. In fact, the first winter, people used to laugh at me. The number of layers of clothing I had on because I couldn't actually endure the cold. So that was my starting point. After I reached RIMC, in fact, my father was not too sure that I'll go through with the curriculum and the rigor of training in RIMC. Even when he left me there, the last moment he said, son, you want to come back? Come back with me. I said, no, Dad. I don't know what made me do it, but I said, no, Dad, I'll continue. And I went through the 4.5, 5 years of training in RIMC. And RIMC actually made me a man, from there. And in RIMC, when I wanted to decide on a career, whether it's Army, Navy, or Air Force, I looked around, and it was a considered choice to join the Air Force after having seen like what exactly you're doing, the old boys. And I looked at the old boys there, and somehow or the other, the Air Force people endeared themselves to me. And I said, Air Force is my career choice. And I'm lucky, I must tell you this. Not everybody gets to be lucky this way. But most people will tell you, go for a career where you have the passion, where your involvement is there. This, at 11 and a half years of age, let me tell you, nobody knows where to go. But I was lucky that at that point of time, when I entered the Air Force, I really found this career of flying, and especially fighter flying, absolutely challenging, and that's how actually I continued in the Air Force. And thanks to God, I did fairly well in this career, and that's my stories, not the usual one.
That's quite a journey, sir. So the one thing that many of us aspirants get confused about is the manner of admission to the defense. So can you just talk about the admission to the National Defense Academy, the Indian Military Academy, the Naval Academy, etc., and maybe shed light on the AFCAT and the CDS entries?
Yeah, I kind of expected this question, Bhavik, and I have to make things easier. I've had a pre-prepared slide, so if it's possible, Binoy, can I have this? Primarily, the stages of entry, if you ask me, are right after 10 plus 2, or plus 2, and the next stage of entry is after your graduation. It can be your 3-year graduate course or engineering degree or MBBS degree. So these are the two different stages of entry. Now, if you look at the screen after 10 plus 2, sorry, can I go back to the earlier one? Yeah. You have three modes of entry. One is the National Defense Academy through the UPSC exam. The exam is the same for the Indian Naval Academy. So they bifurcated to the NDA as well as the Naval Academy. Then for the Indian Army, specifically and the Indian Navy, they have something called the Technical Entry Scheme, where your JEE, main rank, is considered. And then, of course, you have the entry for the Armed Forces Medical College, which all of you are aware of. All three offer you permanent commission. But please note, it's very important. As of now, for the Navy and the Indian Air Force, maths and physics is compulsory at the 10 plus 2 stage. And when you enter NDA at 10 plus 2, after 10 plus 2, BTech has been made compulsory both for the naval as well as for the Air Force cadets in India. And let me also tell you something is just recently started. All the entry into the Air Force was only for the flying branch through India. Now they have opened up even for the other branches, that is technical as well as non-technical, that is ground duties, ADAM, etc. was also being taken into NDA as of now, starting this year. So can I have the next one, please? The next one is actually after the graduation. The main mode of entry is the Combined Defense Services exam, which is conducted by the CDS exam. You also have an entry to the NCC, where you need a C certificate, a minimum of a B grade in the C certificate. And then you have the university entry scheme. That is in the final year of your university, you are offered a permanent commission. And then, of course, like I said earlier, for the Armed Forces Medical Services, and that carries on till the age of 45 for the doctors. So these are for all four services, and a permanent commission is offered. Now, coming specifically, there are some schemes which are very specific to each of the services. Like we see the Indian Army, they have a tech graduate entry course where they take in engineering graduates and postgraduates in science and humanities. They offer a permanent commission. Then they also take in for the Army Education Corps. Then they take in tech, non-tech, NCC, as well as the Judge Advocate General, the law graduates, like Anup is a law graduate. So they're taken for the Short Service Commission through the Officers Training Academy in Chennai. And PC stands for Permanent Commission, SSC stands for Short Service Commission. The next one, please. Now, when it comes to the Navy, please note this. They even take, actually, as officers. Please remember that what I'm talking about is mainly entry for the officer cadre, not for the non-officer cadre, officer persons below officer rank. Navy officer offers careers in sports, music, and law. and they offer permanent commission for officers. And like the Air Force, the Navy has the Indian Naval Entrance Test. Air Force has the Air Force Common Admissions Test. They offer PC and SSC in the Navy. The Air Force offers only short service for flying branch. Short service is for 14 years. And Air Force offers PC and SSC for ground duties branch, that is both tech and non-tech. When I talk about non-tech, it is administration, accounts, education, logistics, all these come under that. So that is what is being actually offered. And another major thing, especially for the parents who have girl child, women also are allowed to enter. They have been taken in all branches now. And for the short service people, after the 10th, 11th year of service, a certain percentage is kept aside for converting from short service to permanent. So all this is available.
So what about the CDS and AFCAT exam?
No. See, you're talking about the CDS and the AFCAT exam. AFCAT is separate, conducted by the Air Force. The Air Force Common Admissions Test. The CDS is by the UPSC itself. Okay, so the Air Force Common Admissions Test, based on every year, whatever the vacancies are, they're taken for flying branch and ground duties branch. And for each ground duty branch, there are a certain amount of vacancies set aside. Both men and women are eligible for that.
Suresh, can I ask you one question about the Coast Guards as a career option?
Sir, we did discuss this, and I think I have a slide somewhere around there regarding the Coast Guard. Do you have it with you, Binoy? Yeah. So similar to the Navy and the other armed forces, in fact, Coast Guard is also an armed force. They have the general duty, which is very similar to the executive branch of the Navy. Then they have the general duty pilots and navigators. They have short service appointments for women. They don't call it commission, they call it appointments. And they also, this is the major difference as far as Coast Guard is concerned, the commercial pilot license holders, those who go in for flying clubs, they get a CPL, etc. They give short service appointments, they select. And then you have the technical entry as well as the law entry. But please, as you see on the projection on your screens, the first three, you need maths and physics at the +2 stage. It's very similar to the Navy and the Air Force. That's what you have for the Coast Guards.
That does seem to open up more options for students to join the defense. So from your experience, what do you think are the skills and competencies that are required in an individual to successfully clear the SSB and the PABT, in particular for the Air Force?
You see, SSB, a lot of information keeps floating around regarding the SSBs. There are a lot of coaching institutes. But let me tell you, it is very, very important to go with an open mind. And I'm very sure the Loyalites, especially, you're well equipped to handle, because you've been brought up in an all-round fashion. So you're well equipped to handle an SSB. But just for your benefit and people's understanding, I put up a few slides, to understand what an SSB in short is all about. Can we have that, please? Important point is SSB. Okay, we have two phases. We have Army selection boards, Air Force selection boards, and the Naval selection boards. Now, based on which you have opted for Army, Navy, or Air Force, by and large, you'll be sent to one of these boards. Please remember the number of applicants for the number of seats are far too large. In the entrance exam itself, the exam itself is fairly difficult, even if you talk about the NDA or the CDS exam. But having cleared that, then you have to come in the merit. And then they select the top few to come for the SSB. Typically, any services selection board center calls about 200 to 300 people. In SSB, there are three main disciplines under which you are tested. First and foremost is your psychological testing. You have the psych, then you have the group tasking testing officer, GTO, and then you have the interviewing officer. These are the three different disciplines. So on the first day, depending upon the number of such sets they have in each SSB, they'll whittle down the number from about 300 to about 60, 50 or so. And that is the phase one under which this whittling down is done. So on day one is the screening. They have the officer intelligence rating test. That's a verbal and non-verbal reasoning, etc. Essentially, they're looking at what is your reasoning ability and what is the effective intelligence of a candidate. Picture perception and discussion test is there. How do you behave in a group? These are the two broad headings under which you are tested on the first day. And then they screen the candidates and retain about 40 to 50 of them. These 40 to 50 are put through a much more detailed test under these three different disciplines that I told you about. So the day two is that for given to the psych. So the tests are shown on the projection. Day 3 and 4 is for the group tasking and testing officer. Various things you have to undergo there. Discussions, planning exercise, group tasks, obstacle race, half group task. It's all there. Anybody who wants to know, please contact me. I can give you the details. It's there on the web also. And day 5 is the conference. The interviewing officer goes through these candidates through all these days. So broadly speaking, SSB is split into this. Now, what do you require to clear an SSB? Can I have the next one, please? Again, I told you a lot of preconceived notions are there. A lot of people give you a lot of advice. Don't listen to me also, frankly speaking, if you ask me. Be yourself. That's what is required. Do not go with preconceived notions. By and large, avoid coaching centers. If you have to go, then go to get an exposure to see what all is involved. Otherwise, I have sat, because I was the air officer personnel, I have sat through the services selection board testing procedures myself, through all these disciplines. You can easily make out a person who's come through a coaching center and who's not. Because the responses of a person who's gone through the coaching center are actually, not natural. What is more important is to be honest and truthful. If you don't know something, you say, sorry, I don't know. I'll come back to you. It may be. But what are the essential qualities? It's something called OLQ, officer-like qualities. Actually, it's applicable for DRDO. It's applicable for the IPS also. It's some self-confidence, a sense of responsibility, initiative, determination, courage, and what is more important is willingness to take calculated risks, not just jump into something. Your communication skills, which Loyola equips you sufficiently with, is important. Reasoning ability, what is your effective intelligence? How do you take in all those inputs? How do you process it? And how quick do you make a decision? And what exactly is your reaction under stress? In any of the services, frankly speaking, be it Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever, there are a lot of times when you have to take a decision under severe stress. Okay, so that is one thing which they test you for. Essentially, when you say officer-like qualities, you're looking for leaders and team players. Never, like I keep telling people, if you have to, if you're here at some stage, by pushing somebody else down, you don't look good, actually. You are where you are. To shine, actually, you have to raise yourself up. So they don't want somebody else being shown in a poor light. You have to lead by example, and you should show an ability to take everybody along. What they don't really like is somebody trying to be oversmart and trying to put others down, like I just explained to you, or be impatient. Frankly speaking, if you're just a normal person with a positive attitude to life and outlook, I think you should clear your SSB. When you're talking about PABT, specifically for the Air Force and flying branch of the Navy, and later, after entering the Army, if you have to go into aviation, you have to go through PABT. It is known as the Pilot Aptitude Battery Test. DRDO has come up with a new selection system called the Computerized Pilot Selection System. For the last 3-4 years, we've been actually doing this CPSS. What it tests is your psychomotor skills and your cognitive abilities. If you just sit in a cockpit, if you just see around, okay, you've got visual inputs, you've got oral inputs, you've got so many other inputs coming up. How do you process it? Do you monitor all of it? So that is actually essentially what they're saying. After monitoring, how do you react to it? So psychomotor skills are involved, cognitive skills are involved. Okay, so the cognitive skill, when I'm saying, is ability to be attentive and focused. So you have to be really focused at that point of time, especially when you're saying, let's say in a fighter cockpit, you have to be there because in seconds, it can lead to a major mishap. So essentially it's cognitive and psychomotor skills. But what you need to remember is they don't give you a second chance as far as CPS is concerned. You can take it only once in a lifetime. Best bet to prepare for the CPS is flight simulations. If you can get to fly an aircraft through your connections or whatever in the flying club or a glider, please go ahead and do that. But otherwise, the flight simulations, play racquetball games, etc., for the hand-eye coordination. But please, video games that call for widescreen monitoring reactions, okay, but don't get mesmerized and don't play on a mobile. That is not really going to help you. And one another small point which I want to give you is today, most people, when you say games, they're very happy with playing games on their computers and mobiles. But what we found in the armed forces, especially in our training academies, both officer and airmen, a lot of people are ending up with stress fracture because of lack of calcium. They don't go out and play. So that is very, very essential. But I think Loyola caters for that. So in sum total, that is SSB, PAVT, and CPSS.
So what about other professions? Like, can people who've taken up other professions like doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc., also join the armed forces?
Yeah, of course, you can. I think I've prepared some slides on the career options as far as Army, Navy, and Air Force are concerned. I'll just cover it very quickly. It's all available. The slides are available. You can just show it. Indian Army. You see, the main thing, if you see on the extreme left, non-tech branch, that is the combat arm. The rest are the support arms and service arms. So you have the infantry, the armored corps, artillery, etc., the combat arm. But there you see technical branches. Whether you've done communications, electronic and communication engineering, whatever. See, and you get to study in the army. That is the best part. Even if you've gone through India, you can join any of these branches. Then you see the support branches. The ordnance is there, military farms are the education is there, military intelligence, police, law, pioneer corps. This all engineering and security corps. Then finally, if you see the right extreme, there's the Army Medical Corps, the Dental Corps, and the Military Nursing Service. So it's a wide spectrum. If you come to the Navy, similarly, can I have the next one, please? So you have, see there again, the main branch of the executive branch. It's a kind of a first amongst equals. All branches are equal, believe me, in all services. But like in the Army, the combat arms take primus inter pares. Am I right, Anup? What do you call that? So something like that.
Yeah.
And in the Navy, if you have the executive branch, then you have the engineering branch, which look after the ships, the engines, etc. Then you have the electrical branch, which looks after the sensors, weapons, underwater systems. Like what DRDO has given, you got a BrahMos on a ship. That is being looked after by the electrical engineers. Then you have the education branch. And finally, the medical. So you'll see medical in all three services. It's armed forces medical services. So the entire spectrum is available, whatever course you do. So be it engineering, be it law, be it civil engineering, whatever. That's it. So Air Force similarly has got the flying branch and the ground duty branch. The flying branch, you have the fighters, transports, and the helicopters. In ground duty, you have the technical and the non-technical. In technical, you have mechanical, electronic streams. It covers almost all the branches of engineering that you can think of. And ground duty, like I covered earlier, you have admin, accounts, logistics, education, and meteorology. Okay, so anybody can enter actually.
Thank you, Suresh. Loads of information that we got. But there's one point that came out. I wonder if our attendees really noted that unlike during my days in the Air Force, today every cadet who joins the NDA, who goes into flying in the Air Force and to the executive branches of the Navy is actually technically qualified.
So absolutely, you're very right, and that point needs to be actually highlighted. As of 2017, July, even Air Force started full BTech for all the flying candidates in India, Air Force candidates in India. So now anybody who passes out of NDA, Naval Cadet or a Air Force Cadet, is a full BTech. Okay, because it's just 3 years in India, but 1 year after that, they declared a full BTech.
Yeah, so everybody actually gets a BTech degree. I mean, those who join the executive.
Absolutely, sir. This was not there earlier. You're absolutely right, but right now it is there. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Anup. It's been a long wait for you, but let me ask you. You are a lawyer by profession, or you were a lawyer by profession. You continue with your interest in law. For a student, it appears to be a very complicated path from law to the police. Can you tell us how this happened?
Oh, I don't think there has been a complicated path at all. I think for this, I mean, to really understand why that happened, that is primarily you need to look at what the civil service is. The civil service primarily is built up about 20 odd services, all requiring a different kind of specialization. But at the end of the day, it is primarily a generalist civil service that is there. So a generalist civil service, the kind of people who actually get into the generalist civil service, if you look at the rank list that comes out every year, that rank list is actually a veritable array of professions, so to say. So you have IITians coming in, you have high-end doctors who are coming in. I mean, people who are postgraduate doctors. We have people from IIMs who are coming in, and recently, over the last 4 5 years, we even had people from Oxford and LSE also coming in to join the civil service, which was only there during the ICS time. So this is basically a very, very generalist civil service, which kind of attracts people from very, very different kind of professions. So, and I think that is also a lesson that I would possibly say for to anybody who's actually interested in joining the civil service, much more than getting into the specifics and semantics of how to write the exam and all of that. What one should be concentrating on is actually finding out a discipline where somebody is really interested in doing exceptionally well at it, and then trying to get in through the examination is probably the route that anybody should actually look at.
Anup, sir, from the beautiful journey of yours, could you give us a few tips and pointers to keep in mind while we prepare for the civil service examination?
Yeah, thank you, Bhavik. Bhavik, if you were to ask this question conventionally, my answer would be, okay, there is a preliminary examination, there is a main examination, there is an interview at the end of it, and this is how you go through each cycle and things like that. But that is actually kind of, it defeats the whole purpose if one were to look at the examination in that format. I would answer this question by giving you a couple of do's and don'ts as far as preparing for this examination is concerned. Now, my assumption is most of the people who are actually sitting through this session are people who are actually in their high school or +2, or people who've just about crossed that period. Now, for people who are basically at that age group, the answer is do not prepare for this examination at this point of time. And I say this because a lot of people whom I come across in various career counseling sessions, people who are not even into high school come up and say, what books should I read? How should I prepare? I mean, should I try this style? Should I do this? Now, this is really not the time to get into all of those kind of things. What really needs to be focused upon is that this is an examination with a very defined syllabus, typically at the level of a bachelor's or an honors bachelor's level. That is the level at which the exam is pegged in. But at the end of the day, that exam has a defined syllabus which can be tackled in a year, or maximum 2 years is probably the timeline in which you need to tackle that examination. So to tackle that examination, it's extremely stupid for somebody to actually in their 6th standard or 7th standard sit down and start preparing for this examination, come up with all these complicated theories of what I'm going to write, what options that I'm going to get into. Please do not get into all of that. Like we discussed in the earlier question, the focus should actually be on getting a top-notch education both in school and college, and then being able to come in and write the examination, because that is really what the civil service wants. So if you walk into an interview, I mean, when you say you're from a top-notch college and this is really what your skill sets are, then that itself, I mean, the base at which your marking is going to starts off from there. So this is really what you should actually be focusing on. The other very significant thing, which is very, very critical as far as the civil service is concerned, and I'm also reasonably sure with a lot of other professions, is that you need to be completely abreast of things that are actually happening around you. And it is not sufficient that you know the facts, but it is far more important that you develop the capacity over time to be able to dialogue with those facts, to be able to understand what is being discussed, to be able to analyze the issues that go into it threadbare, and then you should be typically be even able to write analytically about them. And all of this, I'm sure, Bhavik, you'll agree with me, these are skills that Loyola gives you a head start with. So, I mean, I don't think there will be any problem if you have those skill sets.
Those are indeed few brilliant inputs from you, sir. Sir, we're pretty much curious to know about your training at the police academy. So could you just tell us about how the training at the police academy goes, and maybe a few interesting anecdotes from the training and your subsequent career?
Yeah, Bhavik, so the training academy, I mean, it goes for the IPS, and I'm reasonably sure Marshall sir will also bear me out. I think it's probably one of the most outstanding experiences of your life as far as any uniformed service is concerned. Because and this really gets exacerbated as far as the police is concerned, because what you really have is a bunch of people who are exceptionally bright, who've gone through an exam, but much more than bright, people who come in with supreme confidence at having cleared a very, very competitive examination. And then they come in and say, they are really good. And then they see people who have actually come in, I mean, people who have gone out of the academy and see what kind of things they're doing. And they kind of extrapolate their lives already onto those kind of situations. But the reality is, once you walk in, I mean, while you might have all this grandiose understanding about yourself, they tell you that, okay, you're good, but you're not sufficiently good. So that is kind of really drilled into you from the first day onwards. And the way they do that is by taking people who are, I mean, possibly not even run a 200-meter race in their lives. They push you into the training ground. And then within a span of a couple of months, not really long, they make you run marathons. You do overnight route marches. You get into horse riding. You get into serious swimming. You get into rock climbing, water sports, you name it, you have it. But at the end of the day, you think that this is all about outdoors. You think it's about being physically fit. Of course, being physically fit is extremely important. But much more than physical fitness, what all of this kind of emphasizes is that you need to be able to adapt to survive. Because every day is going to throw up an extremely new challenge where the lessons of the previous day are not really going to help you. So you need to kind of adapt to survive the next day is something that is really, really drilled into you at this point. And when you go through that process, a lot of people actually, I mean, might actually, not be really happy with what you have to go through. But when you go through the entire process, when you come out of it, every person looks back upon it with so much fondness that it is really one of their, most wonderful periods of their life. As far as anecdotes or professional life is concerned, I mean, I've spent a decade and a half, and I believe that the best is yet to come. So I won't get into specific events and things like that. But I think the most exciting part is when you are still in your 20s, you're a young cop, you've just come out of the academy, you've just done your subdivision, and you start running districts. And suddenly the kind of responsibility that is thrust onto you, you need to look into crime control, law and order, and at the end of the day, there are tons of petitioners who come before you. A lot of people who have not really got justice elsewhere. And when you can actually make a difference there, that really is exceptionally satisfying. And I don't think you can actually put that in words. So you need to really undergo that process to really understand that kind of a thing. And as you grow senior, I'm sure my co-panelists will clearly bear me out. A lot of things which you might not even be able to discuss in a public forum or even at home are things that actually you do and become the headlines tomorrow. And they're significant not because they're headlines, but because they're actually extremely impactful as far as society is concerned. So all of this is exceptionally satisfying, and I mean, I don't think you can get more gratification than that.
Anup, you had talked about the cultural shock,
Yeah.
at the academy. But like in the NDA, I'm sure in the police academy also, the greatest cultural shock is that haircut that you get. That's the great leveler. Am I right? That is what brings you to ground zero to start.
Absolutely, absolutely. All your good looks, if you had any, I mean, go off on the first day itself. So I think that brings everybody onto ground zero in the first day itself.
That is where the leveling process starts. Correct?
That's correct. That's
And,
correct.
and it is required.
Absolutely, sir. That is required. Absolutely.
Okay, now let me ask you one question. How much time do you spend at the Administrative Academy in Mussoorie, and how much time do you spend at the National Police Academy? Am I right, at Hyderabad?
Yeah, so I'll just describe the process of training that an IPS officer goes through. So the moment you are inducted into service, you spend the first 3 odd months in the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Missouri, where all services come together and they have a common training program. The purpose of that training program is actually to build a camaraderie between all the services and between people across India. So if you, I mean, anytime in your career, if you have a requirement of something to be done in the other part of the country, you lift up a phone and there's a friend in the other end of the line where you can actually get professional things done so easily. Once you finish that 3 months at Missouri, you move into your respective training academies. So in the case of the IPS, it's the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy in Hyderabad, where you spent 10 months learning the basics of policing, so to say, after which you're pushed out of the confines of the academy into the field. So you spend the next 8 to 9 months as part of district practical training in the field, in the state in which you are allotted in. So you're sent to a district where you learn a lot of practical policing. And the most significant part of that is the 3 months that you spent as a station house officer, or colloquially called the sub-inspector of a police station, where you can forget all your luxuries in life. For 24 hours into 90 days, all you do is work, 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 work. And that really brings you up to speed as far as a lot of things are concerned in policing. And then you go back for a two months of debrief back into the academy, where you put all these lessons and you discuss all of these to find out what you did, was it correct or not, and things like that. So this is really the training program that an IPS officer actually goes through.
Thank you, Anup. One more question to you. What are the career moves that are available for an Indian police service officer within the police force and within the central government setup?
Sir, if I may be permitted, I'll discuss the entire career path. So we have a couple of slides on that. So I'll quickly run through it to go into it. Binoy, if I may. Yeah, thank you, Binoy. So basically, if you look at how an Indian police service officer gets into the service, so right after his training program, he moves into the field in charge of a subdivision. And in charge of a subdivision, he is in charge of public order and law and order and crime and public order issues as far as that subdivision is concerned. After which he typically moves as the district superintendent of police. So these are the first 4 to 8 years. So at the 4th year, you become a district SP. And approximately to the 8th, 10th year, you typically end up doing districts, primarily public order positions that we spoke about. After which point of time, people decide what kind of specialization they want to do, what kind of things they want to do. So if you continue in the state, you might continue in law and order positions, but you also do other kinds of things like if you want to get into investigation, you might get into the crime branch. There is the intelligence branch in Kerala. It's known as the state special branch. You might head a battalion, which is an armed reserve unit. You might get into a training establishment. You might do administrative work in the police headquarters, or you might get into extremely niche units like coastal security, special operations, ATS, and things like that. So that's a repertoire of positions that are actually available to you in the state. Binoy, into the next slide, please. Yeah. So if you were to choose to go into the government of India, which you typically can do between the 5th to the 8th year of your service, you choose multiple streams that are available to you. So if your inclination is to get into the intelligence agencies, so you might choose to go into the intelligence bureau as if you are interested in domestic intelligence. You might get into the cabinet secretariat if you're interested in going abroad and working on intelligence issues for the government of India. Or you might get into the investigation side, where the Central Bureau of Investigation is the oldest institution which gets into anti-corruption and economic offenses. You have the National Investigation Agency, which is a much more newer institution, which started post the Mumbai blast and which works primarily on counterterrorism. And there are other specialized units like the Narcotics Control Bureau and the Enforcement Directorate. Binoy, thank you. And if you are interested in the armed paramilitary forces, so you have the border guarding forces, which is the border security force, the Indo-Tibetan border police, and the Sashastra Seema Bal, all three of which have specific borders that have been assigned to them. And you have, at the airport, you see security that is there. So that is the Central Industrial Security Force, which actually looks after that. You have the CRPF, or the Central Reserve Police Force, which besides assisting states as far as public order is concerned, is also deployed both in the JNK as well as the Nexel theater. And then there is the Elite National Security Guard, which is a elite corps which gets into anti-hijacking and counter-terrorism armed operations that are there. Next slide, please. There are also other specialized units, which is basically the BPRND, which is a think tank for the Indian police. And there are also a couple of very new institutions that have come up. One is the National Intelligence Grid, and the other is the National Technical Research Organization. Both are high-end technical intelligence organizations, which have recently come up over the last 10 to 12 years, where IPS officers also man significant positions. And then there are other institutions like the National Police Academy that we spoke about, or the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. Next slide. Finally, what is significant is that you might be an IPS officer, you might join the police, but policing is not the only thing that is actually open to you. By being virtue of being part of the civil services, there is something called the Central Staffing Scheme, where every civil servant, irrespective of the service that you're assigned to, is allowed to apply and to occupy very different positions. So you might be interested in, say, for example, Panchayati Raj, you might be interested in rural development, you might be interested in health and family welfare. So, I mean, all of these options are available to you. You can join the government of India at various positions. And then there are people who do not stay on in the government of India, join the World Bank, join the Asian Development Bank, join multilateral organizations like the UN. I mean, tons of places where you can go into. And I mean, typically, the only thing that I'm trying to emphasize is that there are so many options. It is up to you to decide what you want to do. And every person figures out once they are, end up doing X amount of service, they kind of realize where they want to go, and you can pick up the paths that you want in the civil services. So, that is really the career options that are available to you.
So the message there is that don't say I don't want to join the police force because I don't have options. You've got any number of career options for moves within the police force and outside the police force. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a long wait for my friend Atul. Atul, before I get on to the formal part of the questions, let me ask you, your father was a scientist in the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center at Trivandrum. You did your engineering, and then you decided to become a scientist, but you chose the DRDO as your career path. I mean, that is very interesting. I mean, science is in your genes, no doubt, but why did you choose the DRDO as a career path?
Good evening once more. I mean, it's wonderful to be here, and others have taken quite a bit of time. I'll try to keep my answer a little shorter so that
you have plenty of time.
Yeah. Thank you. The thing is that the journey into DRDO was embellished. The thing is that, was I to be an engineer? Science was in the genes. Yes, it's allowed to be. I was more interested in commerce. But then I was convinced to do the first group. Those days, Loyola didn't have 11th and 12th, so we had to go to pre-degree in the Kerala University. I did the first group because they said after first group, you can move to commerce. Finished first group, did very well, and then came down the hammer. You want to do a BCom? Evanius Arts College, Kerala, Trivandrum. Or go to the world and do your engineering. Yeah, I think I took that cue and I decided I'll stay on the engineering or science team, which is close to my heart as it is. And I landed up in engineering. Did well again as usual. That's all Loyalites do well. Let me assure you about that. I've actually not seen any Loyalite doing poorly. It's very, 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 very rare. In the stream of schooling or the graduation which they take up. I had the choice, ISRO or DRDO, but I decided if I join ISRO, I will be Dr. Rane's son. And I said, no, I want to be Atul Rane. Maybe at some point of time, someone who will say Atul Rane from Loyola. And I decided I'm joining the DRDO. Those days, jobs were a little limited for engineers, and I joined DRDO. And very interestingly, even Dr. Kalam, who was my director of DRDL, the lab which I joined, he himself asked, how come DRDO, not ISRO, where your father is? I said, sir, DRDO, I want to be Atul Rane, not Dr. Rane's son. And he called up my father and said, thank you very much for allowing your son to join us. Because now, don't forget that Dr. Kalam was in Trivandrum when I was a youngster, a child. So we had known him at that time also. Yeah, so that's how I landed up at DID.
Yeah, VSSC is a name that's familiar to most of us, but then the DRDO is something new to many of us. So could you just introduce the DRDO to us, sir?
I know it's close to my heart, DRD. After having spent so much of time, I can spend 2.5, 3 hours talking about every single part of what DRDO does. I'll try to encapsulate it in one or two or three slides. There are more slides, I think, which I had sent to Binoy and the team. Ranjan sir said not so much. So I think they put in a backup. Binoy, could you put up the first slide? I mean, I'm sure the others are there in the on the site
Yeah,
already.
they are there. They are there. They are there. They are there.
So DRDO is part of the MOD, one of the departments in the Ministry of Defense. Our vision is to empower the country, India, with cutting-edge defense technology for the defense forces, for the defense services. The defense services are our users. All of us know that ASAT is India is one of the few countries with the ASAT. We are, in fact, one of the 4 countries with ASAT capabilities, anti-satellite capabilities. I mean to say. We are one of the 6 countries with a strategic triad. We are, in fact, the first country with a supersonic cruise missile inducted into the forces. Now, behind all these, and many more, I mean, there are many more on the slide, DRDO has developed these platforms. And these platforms are to continuously enhance the requirements. We are working on many, many more. Could I have the next slide, please? In fact, in the last 6 years, a few products which we have done. DRDO works on the platforms, that's the aircraft, the tanks, or the submarines which are there, weapon systems, sensors, soldier support systems. We do consider that the man behind the machine is much more important than even the machine itself. So we do work with the man behind the machine, that is the soldier at the unit level itself. And of course, we do work in cyber and unmanned systems also. The next one, please, because that would make it. Oh, it's a very busy slide. I think I try to encapsulate all those which were left out after Ranjan Saab said a few, and then I try to put everything into this. DRDO works in many, many areas. As I said, the platforms, the weapons. We have entered into space. So we do work with VSSC. I mean, it's not that we are a competitor to VSSC. We complement VSSC on various areas of defense space. And also, we are contributing a little bit into the civilian space in terms of the navigation satellites which are there, because that most of them would be used more by the defense forces. Yeah, and we do work, as I said, the soldier support systems. There are the people who have to be looked after, materials, devices, all these areas. That's the thing. I won't go more. And let's.
Sir, while going through the slides, I came through the words cyber, AI, robotics, etc. So can you just talk about the opportunities in this basis?
Oh, yes, of course. I'll have to bring up that slide again, which was there, which I had encapsulated. You see, the future is AI, artificial intelligence, for the people who are not very much into science and robotics. DRDO works in these areas like, I mean, absolutely. AI is now part of every single thing which we talk of. In fact, right now, everyone is having this debate about WhatsApp. Should we continue on WhatsApp? I mean, it's a big thing. Why they don't want to continue on WhatsApp is because of AI. Using big data analysis, which everyone wants to get into, machine learning, you get to know about each individual. In fact, people would have already noticed when you log into your Gmail, you have targeted ads towards you. This is true. Now, this is through the various things you've been doing on the internet. If you start talking on WhatsApp, very soon you'll start getting those targeted ads on your Facebook or even now if WhatsApp starts putting messages. So this sort of areas we are also working in terms of intelligence gathering, that is surveying the internet, and messages going out. This, of course, is always something which always required. Uh, Robotics for the unmanned systems, the pilot, I mean, remote operated vehicles, the drones. We have been working in uh, sort of, I mean, many of these areas which are there, and this is a huge trust. In fact, we have about 4 or 5 labs working specifically on artificial intelligence and the robotics area.
That seems to be a great addition to the knowledge, sir. So, what about the openings in the DRDO? Like, are the openings in the DRDO only for engineers, or do you also have experts in other subjects like physics, chemistry, psychology, etc.?
Oh, see, the DRDO, as I was explaining to you, we work in many areas. I mean, it's right from underwater to space now. I mean, more recently added. Uh, when you talk about a missile, it's not an engineer who works only on the missile. You need someone to do the propulsion. That's the chemical reaction. So you need the chemistry guys. You need someone to talk about the laws of aerodynamics, which is nothing but physics. Today I mean, I had many hats. Today I'm in an area where out of my 277 personnel and about 40 officers, I work with about 30 mathematicians. I mean, mathematics is another very big area, especially in the areas of cryptography and data learning. Psychology. Uh, Air Marshal Suresh touched upon it in the SSB when they were saying that we get to know whether a person is trained or lying, or I mean, not talking exactly. Those are the psychologists of DRDO who are sitting there on that panel. We have a whole lab called Defense Institute for Psychological Research. So that's filled with psychologists. We have INMAS, Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences, which has mainly doctors and those of biological sciences. Uh, Biological warfare, COVID is maybe, may not be, well, that's a debate to look at later on. Anup to help us out in telling us whether it is or not. Uh, is biological warfare, how to get over it, how to manage it. We have worked in that, and so we have people working in biology and botany, and botany and zoology also in one or two of our labs. DRDO has a lab which is a accredited lab for biological warfare and chemical warfare, training of people on how to go about detecting things. So we have everyone around. We have everyone with us.
That would be a fantastic opportunity to many, I presume, sir. So, since you've already introduced us to the DRDO, can you tell us something about the procedure to join the DRDO, the qualifications required, and maybe the preparations that one should make to join the DRDO?
Ah, yeah, it's. I know that it's not very well known. In fact, I think one of the questions also has come on how do I get into DRDO. I'll try to answer all that. Yes, we do look at all technical as people, engineers, science, spoke doctors, and psychologists. The main thing is okay. There are more of engineers, of course, naturally, and science people. Is the gate score. Everyone has to have a first class degree in bachelor's in the graduation, and they should have a qualified gate score. We advertise. In fact, we have a live advertisement right now. We were advertised sometime in July. We had for about 170 posts. We have about 4.5 lakh applicants. It's huge. I know. It's huge everywhere. Whether it's for the NDA or for the civil services, it's very similar. Uh, what we do is we use the gate score as the screening. We whittle it down to 1:25. That is the number of people have got down to 1:25 using the gate score. Mind you, but the gate score of the lowest applicant will be at least 25% of the top applicant, so that we have a a sort of a proper feel. That's decided. If it's a pure science thing, then it's the that what they call the national eligibility test for assistant professors for the psychologists. That exam is used as the qualifying and whittling down. So that's where the first screening takes place. Then we have our own descriptive exam. This is online of the UPSC exams or the engineering services exams, as we call it, which it's 2 papers of 3 hours each, which just looks at your technical capabilities in your subject, the subject which you have. Then we have brought it down to 1:5. There's a personal interview. The personal interview on lines of the SSB, on lines of the civil services. Your technical part of it has been already cleared through all these exams. So it's essentially checking your psyche. Are you one of the people who can do R&D with an organization like GRDF? Little bit of technical things are also checked, but that's it. This is the direct entry which we start at as a scientist B, as we call it, at the lowest level of an officer. But we do have lateral entries. We do advertise every year for people higher up in the ladder, even right high up as a scientist G, which is a person who normally would have had about 28 or 20 or 30 years of experience becomes a scientist chief. It's equivalent to in the civil services, uh, or for that matter, something like a air vice marshal in the Air Force. I mean, it's something like that, some sort of equivalence. I'm not. We don't have a direct equivalence with all these things, but it's somewhere there. We advertise for these also, and this is based on the requirements that we have, and also based on people we have met through various forums, and we see that there are people in this sort of an area, and you can start. Let's suppose when you started artificial intelligence and robotics, you cannot start recruiting people at scientist B level and say that I'm going to do a project. So you need to find people from coming in as a lateral entry, and you find them and you get them in also. So that's our method of entering into the idea.
I believe there's no better head start than this for those who dream of a career with great prospects. So, out of my curiosity, since you're dealing with very sensitive projects, what are the risks involved as far as personal security and confidentiality concerns?
You see, physical security we are not worried about. That's because we've got people like Anup and his colleagues, and we've got the armed forces, the uniformed officers to take care of the physical security. I mean, it's actually a fact. Not, I mean, there are only maybe 2 scientists now who have had Z security type of requirements. Otherwise, all of us scientists walk out, we go in public transport without any hassle. But the worry which we have is confidentiality. Uh, yeah, in fact, we are not to be on WhatsApp. It's that recently, of course, it's become a international rage on should we be on WhatsApp. I don't have a Facebook account. Uh, WhatsApp is there, but then that's only on a limited case. You have to be very, very careful on how much do you divulge. LinkedIn, again, you might find a few of us, but it's only very sketchy of what's happening. So it's more of confidentiality, and we are sort of. It's not that it comes into you directly. That I don't. It's as we say. My boss has taught me that you don't talk about this anywhere else. It's only between us. And I have now started telling my youngsters, this is between us. I mean, if someone gets to know this, then we are sort of getting into trouble. Uh, you're always worried that you're going to be pressed upon. There are Ranjan Saab told me, don't use the word honey trap, but honey traps are something which we need to be worried about. Everyone needs to be worried about. And there are many other ways, not just the honey trap. There are many ways of blackmailing or coercing a person for information. So we need to be, we always, it's not that we look around our shoulder on, is someone behind me with a gun or a knife? It's more like, it's a digital war out there. It's the cyber world. It's a cyber world which we need to be more careful about. And yeah, that's what everyone. In fact, no, it's not just the DRDO, but it's everyone who has to be careful about it.
So, Atul, there's one question that I wanted to ask you. What the message that should go to all these attendees today is that for those who are interested in a career in the DRDO, please look out for the advertisements that DRDO puts out. Am I right?
Yeah, it's not advertisements, of course, because that's the most important place, and we do advertise every year without doubt. Normally, sometime around June, July, that's when the scholastic year gets over. but we do apply, we do advertise once in a while in between. But if there is someone who feels that I am good and I do require to be in DRDO, they should actually sort of send their bios and the work that R&D which they have done into DRDO. On we have a website where there are places where people can push in their biodata also.
The other point that I would like to emphasize, since Bhavik asked about confidentiality and security, those who are not used to government service, particularly services that deal with security, research and things like that, the basic dictum that governs these services, that policy of need to know. You know only what you are required to know, and you tell people only what they are required to know. So that is what is instilled into you, whether you're a policeman or you're a researcher or you're an armed forces personnel. The basic dictum is that you know what you should know, you pass on to others what they should know. So that takes care
Absolutely.
to a great extent the security implications that are involved. Am I right?
Actually, this cuts across almost all
Government services, yes.
work,
Yes.
but more so in the intelligence and defense
Armed
areas.
forces and research, DRDO. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, before we go on to the next segment of our panel discussion, let me ask one general question. Maybe I put it across to Suresh, and then Anup and Atul can sort of sum it up with your views. In the private sector, salaries see no limit. Okay, I mean there people get salaries that are right up there. That is not so in the government sector. You get very decent salaries, but nowhere possibly what people in the private sector get. Now, is that a constraint? I mean, as far as youngsters coming into the into the government services go, or is that a dampener, to actually use the right word?
So let me give you a very balanced view, to all the people in the audience. Frankly speaking, private sector, when you say the cost to company, cost to company involves everything, whatever, and you need to produce what is much more than your cost to the company. So what you tend to see is only the cash component mainly, which is probably higher, but not in the initial stages, much later. But I had a small slide. If you can dig it out, Benoit, somewhere. So now, if you see, and I'm speaking for all the government services, that means armed forces, the civil service, including the IPS and the DRDO. Earlier, this dictum held true in the sense that the government pay scales were fairly less. Over the period of the 5th, 6th, and 7th pay commissions, they have improved. I'm not going to say that they match up with the corporate sector at the higher levels. But if you just see what is in front of you. Today, I can actually hire an engineer in the civil street for as low as 15,000 to 20,000. But the starting scale in the government sector, and this is what I've given here, is a starting basic pay is 56,100. You add, if you add the MSP, military service pay, if you add the DA, etc., traveling allowance, everything, if you add up, you're getting a 1.25 per month and a CTC of 15 lakhs. I just want to ask all of you, including the parents, who offers you so much at the beginning? Nobody. But having said that, yes, over a period of time, it is not an exponential rise what you face in the private sector. Not only that, in addition to that, what are the intangibles that the government service offers you? Like Anup has done his law from Harvard. I have done an MSc from Madras University, of course, that was staff college, and I got to do MSc from Cranfield. Atul has spent enough time and more in the Moscow embassy. So if you see, what is intangible is phenomenal. So degree-wise, most people think, you don't get to improve upon your academic credentials. Not so. Okay, but that is one side. Over and above that, what are the intangibles? You get a lot of allowances, which I'm not going to state. I put it over there. But you look at the facilities. I put 60 plus 20 days of leave. You don't get the full thing, believe me. Like Anup will bear with me, will work on a Saturday and a Sunday also probably. So when I was in Western Air Command and when Mr. Xi Jinping decided to spoil my sleep, I didn't get a night off also. So that's the way it goes. But by and large, what I want to harp on is the quality of life that you get to enjoy, which the civil street does not provide you. So it's just ration, medical, everything as far as you're concerned is taken care of. So it is a particular specific attitude that you have, an involvement, a passion, and that's what will actually carry through, not your payslip per se, which is good. Like Wing Commander Ranjan Kanti said, it's good. It takes care of you. The system takes care of you, and a lot of intangibles are there. It's a challenging and satisfying profession. And one last thing I want to tell you, okay, is the esprit de corps that you have within the services. Okay, the families are really taken care of. You can go off for a month or 2 months. You can go for an operation, but you really don't have to worry about your family, the children, the security, nothing. It's all taken care of. So that is actually what is more important. And the last bottom line, and this is not from my pocket, XLRI Jamshedpur, calculated in 2014. When you say cost to company in the civil sector, we talk about cost to government. Whatever the cash component that you get, which is fairly decent as far as the seventh pay commission is concerned, multiplied by 4, and that's your cost to government. So it's not too bad. So whether it's armed forces, the civil service, or the DRDO, it's fairly decent. I'll leave it to
I could add on.
Atul,
I
your
could
views
add
on
on.
this?
I could add on. In fact,
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
when you join the government service as an officer, be it Air Force, be it the uniform forces, or any central government thing. And I believe we have a separate session on the government services. But the fact is that you join at the lowest level, which is level 10 of the 8 scale, and the top is level 17. So there's only that much of growth which is left behind, which is not what is there for the thing in terms of salary. But you work on state of the art equipment. I mean, Air Marshal has worked on what sort of equipment. I'm sure, I mean, he can talk about it, but he has done a lot of stuff, a few of the technical things are there. In fact, DRDO, we always say we are working on state of the art, not only projects which you're doing, but the company you're doing. And the main thing is the excitement of the work which you're doing. I'm sure we'll go into all those things, but the adrenaline rush you get by while you're in your service, it can't be replaced by a salary. It's what you're doing for what you're doing.
If I may ask,
I'm
sir,
sure
like advertisement today, if especially if you're joining flying in the Air Force, is saying where do you get to work on a workstation at 40,000 feet in the air? Yeah, so that's the kind of like he said, Atul said, I can talk for hours on end, but this is not the forum to do so. But it's really challenging, believe me.
Yeah, if I could just add, I mean, I think Air Marshal Sir would have had to really dig up all his records to find out all the benefits that are available to to a civil servant or an army person. But I would also challenge him, and I'm reasonably sure he would not even remember what his pay was. I mean, when he was actually, receiving his pay. The whole point is that there is this philosophy.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. So the whole philosophy of the pays in government is basically that your needs are taken care of, your family's needs are taken care of, so much so that you do not even bother about what your actual take-home pay is. So the only advice that I can potentially give to anybody who's interested in government services, if what makes you tick is the salary that comes at the end of the month or how much you're making, if even that remotely makes you tick, then this is not the place to be in. You have to be here if there are so many other reasons for you to come in. I mean, public service, excitement of doing what a lot of these careers offers. Unless that is there, please do not look at whatever salary, however comfortable it is, and come and join the government.
Atul, if you remember, in private conversation, we discussed about the saving grace of this whole thing. Your pensions after you retire and an assured salary.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, I sort of a little bit switched off for a moment, but if someone says that there is higher salary somewhere else, forget about the pension part, we'll come to that. But during the pandemic, how many people have lost their jobs? It's the government who has been paying. Whether I deserve it or not is a different matter. But finally, you are taken care of, whether it's in terms of your salary or whether it's in terms of your family, as Marshall said. The government takes care of all those things so that you can continue to work on the areas which are assigned to you. There's no doubt. Pension, of course, is there. Although today's government jobs are not pensionable, it's the national pension scheme which people need to know. But there's still there always government job is always more lucrative when there are times of attrition. That I can assure you.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. I think that's
Just a
great
small
view from
input,
all three of you.
just a small input. The only service actually which continues to have pension is the armed forces still, but I really don't know for how much more long.
It depends on a lot of things. But it's deserved. I mean, whatever it is, it's the times of attrition which actually puts the people under test.
Bhavik?
Bhavik, I think, has gone off for some reason. I mean, I'm sure our tech team is trying to
Oh, I see. Okay, okay,
work it out.
okay, okay. Then maybe I will ask Suresh a question. Suresh, what are the qualities that the forces look forward to in an officer?
So when you talk about actually, and I will refer it to any government service, again, it stands good, holds good for any of the services. Frankly speaking, start with, again, I think I may have a slide somewhere, so if you can produce it, maybe somewhere in the background it is there. Yeah, it is, first and foremost is integrity and honesty. And specifically in the armed forces, and I'm sure in the IPS, like what Anup said, right from the word go, you're a leader of men and women. So when you're a leader, everybody is looking up to you. And today, believe me, Ranjan sir, and we are all on the older side. We are from the older generation, but today's kids are very smart. They can assess you well. So believe me, the people whom you command and whom you lead are very smart. So there's a need, and even otherwise, there's a need to be very, very genuine, focused, and compassionate. You need to lead from the front. When you're a leader, what is required is credibility. Why does anybody look up to anybody else? And how do you get credibility? You get credibility by subject knowledge, your skill, as far as your profession is concerned, and in armed forces, the profession of arms. You need to be a good professional. And why so? We have had long interludes of peace, and you get tested once in a while. So when the war comes upon you, you better be the victor, because there are only two positions, the victor and the vanquished. And we better be on the side of the victor. And so far, so good. You've done decently well. And last but not the least, of course, you need to be an officer and a gentleman. The next line I put, because most people think, you need to be a sycophant and things like that, is not really required. I almost got thrown out at various stages as a flying officer, as a flight lieutenant, but God was with me and the service was kind. Okay, but if you're a good professional, you tend to continue. People need you. And there are no real restrictions, frankly speaking. Like what Atul said, we are a soft state. People are out to get information from you. Awareness is everything. You need to be aware how vulnerable you are in terms of your media, in terms of your social media, in terms of your emails. Everybody is trying to hack you on the cyber front. And the higher you go, the more the number of hackers. My email has got hacked. There have been attempts to actually, what is it, honey trap. Okay, I'll use the word again. But people have identified whom to tap and whom not to. And it's your awareness that will keep you safe. So you have to be fairly restricted in your use of WhatsApp. I was off Facebook. Nothing like that. Okay, so that is that. And little political and religious affiliations. None of the government services actually permitted, not permitted in the sense that they don't encourage it. We are fighting on my right and left tomorrow. I don't know. We are all fighting together. So that is one thing our services teach you. The all India services also teach you. We are all together in it. Okay, and marriage to foreign nationals is a little is discouraged, but you can go provided they convert back to an Indian citizenship. So these are by and large, what I thought you may like to know about.
Thank
That's
you.
what
Actually, Bhavik and me, we had decided we must ask you a question on what
Sure.
your proudest moment and most challenging assignment in the Air Force was. But I think we are running out of time. And, so what I'll do is I will possibly answer that question for you, maybe give you a hint. I know that you took part in the Kargil operations, many such operations as far as the Air Force is concerned. So those must have been operationally the most, the proudest moment for you. But a few months back, I was in Trivandrum, and during the Chief Minister's evening briefing on TV, I mean, I wouldn't listen to it every day, but one day when I switched it on, somebody asked him some question. And he said, I mean, I speak in Malayalam. He said, Nammade Suresh. He was talking about the floods. Yes. So the fact of the matter is that too would have been very challenging for you. Am I right? And a great source of satisfaction for you.
Absolutely, it's a very just a very quick this thing. I left Kerala at the age of 12. I came back to Kerala as a CNC of Southern Air Command after 46 years. 10 days after I arrived in Kerala, the floods started. It was Providence that I landed up back. And I was off to Coimbatore that day. Something, told me that please stay back. And then I was there in that war room thereafter. The relief commissioners, this thing. Oh, it was, all the services were there, including the Coast Guard. We all sat together from our side. Of course, the civil admin side. It was the first time in probably 100 years that there was some kind of a calamity over there in Kerala, of this nature. There was a little bit of hiccup, but they caught on very fast. When everybody pitched in, and it was a humongous effort, but it was a very, very satisfying and a tremendous effort. And of course, I used to sit in the morning and afternoon conferences with him. I used to sit next to him for quite a few days till the situation stabilized. And that's why he remembers it.
That's a great story.
Yes.
Bhavik is back with us, by the way.
Yeah. Bhavik is back. Yeah. Bhavik, all yours.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir, that I was caught in a network issue right now. Atul, sir, what about you? Have you got any kind of challenging assignment that you've had, or one of maybe maybe the proudest moment you had in your career?
I pointed out that you're back and you attacked me immediately. Okay. Yeah. Work right from the day go is wonderful in DRDO. I mean, you work on very interesting things. Proud moments are whenever you do a successful test. Many of them happening more recently. This thing. The main thing is that a DRDO guy. I mean, let me take my experience. I've sailed on a naval ship. I've been flown on Air Force aircraft. In fact, I've been on a submarine only once for a very short time, for maybe about 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours. But we have a guy in DRDO who says I have spent more time in a submarine than any submariner of the Indian Navy himself. So it's fantastic. But the most interesting thing is I spent 4 nights, 5 days on an uninhabited island in the Andaman Nicobar area, getting ready for an experiment we were doing for BrahMos. Who gets this chance? I was a Robinson Crusoe for 5 days. This is unbelievable. Dropped by a chopper by the Air Force guys, support by the Navy guys in bringing in material for doing your work. You see the naval Garudas coming in and the naval Marcos coming in and giving you some help and all that. It was unbelievable. That was one of the interesting things.
Bhavik, unfortunately, we are running out of time. There's so much to talk. So what I'll do is let me sort of just give one rapid fire question to our three panelists before we get on to the question and answers.
Okay, sir.
The question is, should you go through life again? Would you choose the same career? Suresh, quickly.
So most certainly I would, but then again, it all depends on the situation, the circumstances, and which I am born again. But it was a lovely innings, lovely career. I really don't mind saying that I will, opt for it once again.
Anup?
Absolutely no doubts about that.
I would no regrets, but I think the question that you should actually be asking is whether I would recommend my children to join the services. And I think I have no qualms saying that I would recommend that.
Okay, that's great. And Atul?
Yeah, I'll add both those answers together. If circumstances repeat, maybe, yeah, I would definitely go to this. 34 years is wonderful. Children going through it. My son's doing that. He's into R&D. So yeah, if circumstances repeat, I will be doing this again. Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of the discussions with the panel. But I've got 4 questions that have come in, maybe many more, but we've selected 4 questions that have come in. The first one is possibly for Anup. Anup, the question is, does the Kerala Police Thunderbolt Commandos come under the anti-terrorist department? So obviously somebody is looking for adventure.
Yeah, so the Thunderbolt Commandos are actually now called the Special Operations Group, and they are a much more older unit which gets into armed operations as far as left-wing extremism and anti-Naxal operations are concerned. We are a completely new unit which looks into intelligence, investigation, and operations on all terrorist theaters. So both Naxal as well as religious extremist theaters are also part of our mandate.
Thank you. There's one more question on the police. It's from a young lady, Lakshmi MG, who says, sir, in IPS these days, when the postings and all are decided by political inclinations alone, where integrity, merit, etc., are less rewarded or least matter, honestly speaking, is it really satisfying career, sir?
Absolutely, I think I think what really was missed out was basically. I mean, we spoke a lot about physical courage and physical conditioning and all that. But what is far more significant as far as public service careers are concerned is actually something called moral courage. It's the ability to be able to stand up for what is right and to be able to speak truth to power. And I think that is the most critical element that you have to ingrain in anybody who's getting into a public service career. Now, you might move from one position to the other or to a third position, but at the end of the day, you must realize that you are moving into positions that are to be manned by persons of your seniority and your rank in government, and you have to make a difference wherever you go is really the mandate that has been assigned to you. So if somebody were to crib about I want this posting or that posting, then I think you need to really do a check on why you joined the service in the first place.
Okay, one more, the last question. Is it necessary to do a test before joining RAW, Research and Analysis Wing?
So, I can. I have not worked in the RNDW, so I will not be able to comment on all of those. But I can tell you the manner in which an IPS officer gets into the cabinet secretariat is through a process of deputation, which is also applicable to all the other civil service careers. So that is the process that is there as far as IPS officers and other civil servants are concerned.
Okay, just one input for all attendees. We have a large number of questions. Unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we have not been able to take up all of them. But those questions that are unanswered, if you feel that we have not given you a satisfying answer to your questions, please do mail us at exploreloba@gmail.com and we shall get back to you. Now, while the session is on, we have just another 5 minutes to go. There is a poll. Can I have the poll, please? How do you rate the contents of today's sessions? Your choice, and please click and then.
I'm not allowed to vote.
Okay. Can we have the results, please? Wow. Almost everybody says very good or good. The next question, please. How do you rate the panelists? That's a very
For the
important
first time,
question.
I feel like I'm on TV.
Or do we keep our fingers crossed? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we are. That's the end of that poll. Can we have the results? Wow. Yes. So I think we have won. Thank you, everybody. That brings us to the end of the poll. Before we wind up this evening session, let me just show you a slide. Okay, this is
Oh,
a slide about the next session, session 5, which is on engineering and technology. Our panelists are Ajayan PM, Deepu John, Krishna Chandran B, Ranji Kumar, Vipin Varki, and Tojo Epan. This session is scheduled for the 16th of Jan at 6:45, as all other normal sessions. They are all top notchers in the field that we are going to discuss on that day. Please do register and join in. Before I wind up today's session, let me say a special thank you to our friends from the 3 Jesuit institutions across Kerala who have joined in, and also a thank you to our panelists who have taken time off their busy schedule to be with us, and of course, the backup team. They have done an excellent job. So thank you very much, all of you. Good night till we meet again on the 16th. Jai Hind.